Guys, there are so many good NHL wingers. This tier list was so hard to put together. That's why you guys need to be drafting in a tiers format. If you want to win your fantasy hockey leagues this year, you have to understand the marginal differences between guys that are elite, guys that are good, and guys that are just one-offs. And that's what this tiers video is going to do. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Here are your top 20 fantasy hockey wingers for this upcoming fantasy hockey season. All right, guys, here we go. Top 20 wingers. As a reminder, the categories that these tiers are based off of are goals, assists, power play points, shots, hits, and blocks. Obviously, I have my favorite winger, William Nylander, as my jersey right now. Guys, there's so many good wingers, but let's start things off as the clear number 1 and 2 off the board. Nikita Kucherov, and of course, David Pastrnak. The clear 1-2 off the board for me in every single format. In terms of wingers specifically, Cooch goes first every single time. He's closer to the McDavid, McKinnon, Draisaitl range than, say, closer to like the Pasta, Austin Matthews. He's closer to that kind of upper echelon of elite players. He has what seems to be like 120 point floor with 40 goals, 270 shots, and over 50 power play points almost every single year. He's an absolute cheat code when it comes to fantasy hockey. He has been a cheat code ever since he's shown that he can also stay healthy. Pass is great, and don't get me wrong, like I think he showed that he doesn't need a good team around him to be good, hence what we saw from him last season on a pretty bad Bruins team. He's got a great shot volume, a great goal floor, but the Bruins power play is bad. And so he takes a bit of a hit in that power play points category, especially when you compare him to a guy like Kucherov, where he literally gets you like 50 power play points. Passes are great though still, like he's insanely durable. He hasn't missed a game in 3 seasons. He's just can do it all himself. I think that there is some risk associated to the Bruins and Pastrnak kind of dropping off slightly in terms of his overall production, but we'll see. I think there's just more risk associated with Pasta given the team that he's on, but in terms of wingers, these are the clear number 1, number 2 off the board. Up next, we have Kirill Kaprizov starting off our A tier. A lot of you yelled at me last year that Kaprizov should be an S. How is Kaprizov not an S? He's an absolute monster when he's healthy. Everybody knows this. He's a legitimate contender for the Hart every single year. He's got 50 goal, 110 point upside, but we have to pump the brakes on him. In 2 of the last 3 seasons, he's played under 70 games. He costed you guys a lot of your fantasy hockey playoff success because he was out during this time, because he cannot stay healthy. You have to have this guy play over 70 games in order for him to actually return value in terms of where you're picking him in the draft, because they go so early. Regardless of the upside, he is injury prone. It's hard to draft a guy that can just sit on IR for 30 to 50% of your season and just do nothing for you. Right? It puts you in such a tough position, especially in super competitive leagues. So you have to factor in the injury concern at this point. He's going to get to S tier if he can play more than 70 games this year. I bet on him for the Hart every single season because one of these years he's going to do it. Hopefully he stays healthy, and then at that point he'd be in the S tier. Up next we have Mikko Rantanen of the Dallas Stars. Guys, I don't understand the disrespect. You can see here that I've literally publicly stated that this guy is just getting so much hate for no reason. Shout out to Apples and Ginos for saying that he's going to score 32 goals. I think it was 32 or 33. God, I can't wait to rub that into his face. This guys, he's an absolute monster. In a worst case season for him, where he not only gets traded once, but twice, he still manages to put up 88 points. There's a little bit of personal element here that you need to understand goes through a player when you just completely uproot him out of the system in which you've been here for the past 7 years. He still manages to put up 88 points, which is an insane floor. Yes, I get it. He no longer gets to play with McKinnon. He no longer gets to play with Makar, which is why he's in the A tier and not in the S tier, where you normally would see out of him a 105-point floor with 40 goals, playing on one of the best power plays in the league. He gets a little bit of a bump back. But it's not like he's on the Blackhawks, guys. Everyone saw what he did in the playoffs. He is still elite. He's still a first-round pick in fantasy. He's still going to get you 40 goals and 95 points, 260 to 270 shots. It's fine. Everybody relax. Moving on to our final player in the A tier, we have Brady Tkachuk of the Ottawa Senators. Finally, we saw a chink in the armor of the absolute machine that Brady Tkachuk is, but I will not be taking any Brady Tkachuk slander. Did he have the best year offensively? No. But he still managed 29 goals, 296 shots, and 228 hits. He was playing through an injury, though, and which he suffered in March, which likely explains the drop in shots and hits. So I'm not at all concerned about Brady. And if Timmy takes another step this year, which we're hoping he does, then Brady's going to be alongside his coattails for that as well. Ottawa didn't really do much with their roster in the offseason this year, so there isn't a ton of changes, but I think he just gets back to his normal cheat code self next year. Starting off our B tier, we have William Nylander of the Toronto Maple Leafs. He is the right wing version of Brayden Point. Hasn't missed a game in 3 seasons, scored 40 in the past 3 seasons. He lives in that 85 to 95 point range every single year. The difference is he has an elite shot volume and plays a premium position, which is right wing in fantasy, which we know. I wonder if he can get to another level with Marner gone. The Leafs might need to rely on him more. They're not going to have that extra offensive uptick where you're losing a 100-point player in Mitch Marner. We could see that closer to like that 100-point that he had that one season. But Willie is as safe as it comes to anyone in fantasy hockey. He's insanely consistent in terms of his goal scoring, in terms of his shot volume, in terms of his point production. So I would not be worried at all. That's why he's topping our B tier. Up next, we have Kyle Connor. 2 words, guys. Contract year. That's all you need to know. He's 28. He's in his prime. He's just coming off of a 97-point season. I could see another 40-goal, 90-point as he chases free agency. He is going to play a ton on this Winnipeg offense. He is the main catalyst in this Winnipeg offense. He just doesn't have those levels that I think Nylander has, and he also plays left wing, which isn't as premium as a position. Pretty consistent across the board. Great pick in the 2nd round if you can grab him. Up next, we have Mitch Marner of the Vegas Golden Knights. They haven't updated his headshot yet, so apologies. He's been pretty much a 100-point guy the last 4 seasons. But again, with Marner, the narrative remains the same. He rarely scores over 30 goals. He rarely gets over 200 shots. A lot of people are really high on him going into Vegas, but you got to remember that Marner is now no longer playing alongside a generational goal scorer in Austin Matthews. Instead, he's playing alongside a guy that's never actually scored 40 goals, let alone 60. It's more like Marner will make everyone else around him better, yet remain the same in terms of production. He's just so consistent on a year-to-year basis and such an elite player. The production will more or less be what you've seen up until this point. Don't get overly excited, but also understand that he's got a really, really good floor. He's just pretty limited in the peripheral department as well. Up next, we have Sam Reinhart. We knew the 57-goal, 24% shooting percentage year was an outlier, but instead he settled back down into what I think is a safe 2nd-round pick where he's got some 40-goal point per game upside, and he throws up around like 60 blocks and 90 hits. The main difference, I think, between him and Marner is the fact that Marner is up close to 100 points. Reinhart, again, doesn't have that crazy high shot volume. Neither does Mitch. You could make an argument that you could take Reinhart over Marner, especially the fact that he's center right wing. And I think they're very, very close. Reinhart just kind of lacks the shot volume that, say, Kyle Connor and William Nylander have. In my opinion, I think the ceiling's kind of capped at this point. Maybe he's just like slightly over a point a game, but he should live in towards kind of like the 80-point range for me. Up next, we have Artemi Panarin of the New York Rangers. Very similar to Reinhart. We knew that the 120-point, 49-goal season felt like a bit of an outlier. He's similar to Marner in the sense that he gives you around 95 points a year, and he's shown flashes of these higher goal and shot totals in the last 2 seasons. So why do I have him lower than Mitch and Reinhart? First of all, he's going to be 34, and I think we're starting to see a decline. I'm not 100% convinced that last year was a one-off for the Rangers. Yes, they brought in JT Miller, and he was, great in that 30-game span. But the main pieces of all that top 6 are aging. We've got Zib, JT Miller, Trocheck, all going to be like 32. We've already started to see Zib drop off a little bit. I think Panarin sticks in that like 85 to 90-point range with around 30, 35 goals. Doesn't quite hit some of the goal totals of some of these other guys, or the shot volume of some of these other guys, or the peripherals. Finishing out our B tier, we have Philip Forsberg. It's encouraging to see him string together back-to-back 82-game seasons. Like, there was a time and place where we thought, very similar to like Kucherov, for example, where we thought, this guy is injury prone for sure, and you can't rely on him to play close to over 75 games. He has the ability to be one of the best wingers in fantasy hockey, given his elite shot volume, given his hit combo, given his 40-goal upside, but it looks like Nashville's kind of trapped themselves bringing in 2 34-year-old wingers, and who knows what's going to happen with Roman Josi this year, given his like heart condition. Again, I think you could bump him above like Panarin, maybe even Marner, depending on your settings. He only plays left wing though, which isn't a real premium position. The situation that Nashville's in, it kind of limits his ceiling. The 94.48 goal season is a bit of an outlier. Like him in that 35 to 40 range. Ton of shots, ton of hits. You could probably bump him up this list a little bit, but I'm hesitant if they continue to struggle. What's going to happen? I just think he's going to live in that like 75-point range. Starting off our C tier, we have Jake Gensel of the Tampa Bay Lightning, newly the Tampa Bay Lightning. Guys, we knew he could have a monster year playing on one of the best power plays in the league, but I did not have leading the NHL in power play goals on my bingo card. You get a 40-goal season out of him, and that's exactly what you want with 80 points. He doesn't hit a ton. His shot volume is not really elite, though. but I think he's a safe bet to be similar to what we saw last year, where he's in that like 40 goal range. Now he's got a big uptick in power play point. He could sneak into this B tier if you really wanted to put him there. I'm also curious to see if they stick him with Kucherov for the entire year. I know they kind of moved Kuch around a little bit last year. He was on Cirelli's line for a little bit. He played with Point's line for a little bit. You can just plug and play him anywhere, but I think Guentzel's pretty safe for 40 goals and around 80 points with his new uptick in power play points. Next, we have Clayton Keller, consistently a 30 goal guy, hovers around that 225 shot range. He showed last year that he can hit another tier production. The team around him is getting better. The power play went insane last season, so you might see a little bit of regression there. But the emergence of guys like Dylan Guenther and the addition of a guy like Sergachev, who's an actual power play one quarterback, made a lot of the difference in that power play clicking. I just don't see him scoring 40 goals, which is why I have him behind Guentzel. Could have like another 90 plus point season. I think he's in a good spot. Again, peripherals aren't really great. He's got a higher ceiling than Guentzel in terms of his point production, and that power play is more or less the same as what we're seeing out of Tampa now. Guentzel has that kind of 40 goal upside. Up next, we have Jesper Bratt of the New Jersey Devils. He's just one of those guys that, like, I put him on this list and I feel like he should be 2 tiers higher. He's so underrated in this range, especially after coming off of an 88-point year. His scoring took a little bit of a hit. It dropped from that 25 to 30 range to just 21 goals. His shot volume also took a hit. His shots per 60 went down from around 9 to being only 7. But there's some positives. Like, Bratt's incredibly durable. He's only missed 1 game in his past 3 seasons. He's now also dipping into that, like, 90, 95 range for his hit totals. All it takes is just 1 season of Jack Hughes staying healthy, and this guy could go to the moon. If he ends up scoring 30 goals next year and has a decent shot volume along with that, like, 90-ish hits, like, he's going to jump up a tier for sure. Up next, we have Adrian Kempe of the LA Kings, another guy that just feels criminally low on this list given his, you know, kind of peripheral outlook. 30 to 40 goal combo, the 250 shots, the triple-digit hits. But I think his ceiling is tapped, guys. Like, he's going to live in this 70 to 75 point range due to his playmaking ability being so inconsistent. He's not going to hit the ceiling of the guys in front of him. Even though he is in that kind of like 30 to 40 goal range with 250 shots, the power play points are just awful. Like, he averaged around 15 over the last 3 seasons, where you look at a guy like Guentzel with, you know, similar kind of stature in terms of points. Like, he's probably, Guentzel, I'd say more in the like 80 point range, 40 goals. Kempe's got triple digit hits, obviously, but half the amount of power play points as Guentzel. So it's tough to kind of put him above the guys ahead. Next up is Jason Robertson of the Dallas Stars. I guess the 109 point season was the outlier, guys, which sucks because I drafted J-Rob in the 2nd round hoping that he had a ton of upside and he was just a year removed. But unfortunately, it looks like we've seen a steady decline on both shots and power play points and ice time from J-Rob over the last 3 seasons. On top of that, it now looks like Dallas has a true triggerman on the power play in Mikko Rantanen. It's not like having a consistent point per game guy with 35 goal upside is ever a bad thing. And he's only 25, but at the end of the day, I have a hard time seeing him breaking back into that like 100 point range. I think there's a circumstance where he gets into the 90 point range if Rant is the one that actually unlocks him and they kind of just go back and forth and they both have like a, you know, let's say it's like a 40-55 season or something like that. But I like him in this 35 goal, 80 point range, similar to what we saw last season. I've just seen a steady decline over the past 3 seasons, and there's a lot of like red flags here. Erring on the side of caution here. I'm not ready to like be like, oh yeah, because Rantanen's here, he's going to get, you know, 95 points. But I do like how consistent he is in that 80 point range. Rounding out our list, we have Brandon Hagel of the Tampa Bay Lightning. It seems like a lack of respect to put him here after a monster 90-point season with 35 even strength goals. This could go one of 2 ways, guys. He's either going to get power play one time and explode for another 90-point season, or he's going to sit in that 75-point range, given his two-way nature and his second-line mates. As you can see, he's always just paired up with Cirelli. Cooch sometimes hops onto his line. Cooch sometimes is off of his line. So I think, you know, I just want to see it again from Hagel. Let's just split the difference. Let's say he gives 80 points next year, 30 goals. J-Rob, I think, gets the edge over him, just given the fact that he's done it consecutively at this point. So for me, Hagel, I think, is in a good spot in this tier list. Rounding out our final 4 players, we are starting in the D tier with Martin Necas. We always knew how talented of a player he was. This is why we were on him a couple of years ago for a breakout season. He's just incredibly skilled across the board. He's now skating alongside McKinnon for a full time next year. This could easily be the player that jumps the most on this list, just given his overall situation and environment going into next year. finished with 28 points in 30 games with the Avs and saw a bump in 2 minutes average time on ice to where he was over 20 minutes average time on ice. He didn't quite show the 1 hit per game that we saw the season prior, which I was hoping he would continue on. And he doesn't really block, and his shot rates actually come down since the trade. He's also never hit the 30 goal mark once in his career. So I think there's a little bit of risk here in terms of what his true ceiling is. I like him in that like kind of show me again category of players with, you know, him being around 75 to 80 points. But I think he has a chance to go absolutely nuclear with what we saw last year in Carolina, specifically because he's playing with McKinnon and Makar. Up next, guys, we have Alex Ovechkin of the Washington Capitals, the literal greatest goal scorer of all time in NHL history. Good for triple-digit hits every year and over 250 shots on average. Well, last year was his highest shooting percentage in his entire career, and his average time on ice was his lowest in his career. So the math is not really mathing here with Ovi, unfortunately. I don't think we can count on 40 goal seasons anymore at this point, guys. Either way, I think he's in the 35 goal, 250 shot and gets you that like 100 plus hits in an ideal year. But I think it's quite possible we start to see some decline and some slowdown from him as he's going to be 40. I'm just erring on the side of I think that we're going to see a little bit of a decline from a production standpoint. So I have him adjusted accordingly in the D tier. Rounding out our list, we have Matt Boldy of the Minnesota Wilds. Honorable mentions here were Lucas Raymond and obviously Matthew Tkachuk. I'll start with Matthew Tkachuk. We know he's going to be out till January. There's rumors of him going and playing in the Olympics and then going back on LTIR. I don't know what's happening with the situation. I know if he's back in January, it's fine. I just don't know if I'm really jumping to try and grab this guy if he's going to be on my team just sitting on IR for, you know, half the season. Raymond, I think, was really close to beating out Boldy. I think this is the year that we see Boldy hit the 40 goal, 80 point mark, which would then edge out Lucas Raymond, given the fact that, you know, Boldy's shot volume is significantly better. He's the same age as Raymond. He's 23, he can still level up. I like the goal scoring upside more as well. And let me know what you guys think of the list in the comments down below. What would you change? Who would you move? Who's overrated? Who's underrated? I love hearing your guys' opinions. But this is what I have right now for my tier list for our top 20 wingers in fantasy hockey for next season. But thank you guys for watching. Appreciate you. Leave a like, hit that subscribe button. We have so much fantasy hockey content coming for you next year. Also, check out fantasypuck.net for all your fantasy hockey leagues, including our Patreon. I'll see you in the next video. Have yourselves a fantastic rest of the day.